human resources, and I put my hand over my mouth and I say over 30 some years, okay, for quite some time. And my human resources background really has to do with, I'm a generalist. So that means that I have been involved with benefits, compensation, a lot of training and development, on career opportunities. But one of the things that I've always liked to do the most is recruit for the companies that I've worked for. It really happens to be one of my favorite things to really do. I love working with people to put job descriptions together, put the ads out there. And I think it's just been the best part of my career is meeting a lot of very many wonderful people and giving them the opportunity to basically wind up working for the companies that I've worked for. A number of years ago, I worked for a very large bank, and I actually had a team of recruiters throughout the state, and that was very challenging, but it was really challenging for me as well, but I loved working with them. So recruiting and working with people in their resumes, with their resumes, is probably one of my most favorite parts of being in human resources. So let me just say this, we'll start off with this. Despite appearances, your resume is not about you or your work experience, all right? If you have your resume in front of you, or if you want to take some notes, feel free. You might want to take your resume and just jot some notes down in the columns. Your resume is really geared to the employers you're targeting and how they and the organization will be more successful if they hire you. So, we always think about a resume as reflecting what we do, but what it boils down to is you want to stand out to that employer, and you want to let that employer know exactly what you can do for them. Your goal as you build your resume is not to list or describe each of the jobs you've had in the past. Your goal is to convey the following message: I have the experience, I have the skills, I have the traits, I have the talent and abilities that will enable me to contribute to your company's success. That's what your resume should be all about. And I'm going to share this with you. Recruiters can take as little as 30 seconds to conduct an initial review of your resume. So you want to avoid cluttering your document with unnecessary information, which might make it harder for the recruiter to find the most qualifying elements of your background. Now, I will say over the years, wherever I've worked, when I have to fill positions, one of the things I will always get, of course, is employment requisition. And then I pull the job description that goes with that employee rec. And I actually meet with the manager, and I'll say to the manager, please tell me what are the key elements of what you're looking for in the candidate that I'm going to find for you. And they'll highlight items on that resume, and I'll use that one to build my job or my ad up for LinkedIn or wherever I might post it. So that when the resumes come in, what I do is I sit with that job description and I take the resume, and I've actually taught recruiters to highlight on that resume the same elements. So if they're looking for, and I'm just going to say, for example, I have a job description for an accounts payable person. If they're looking and it's important that they process invoices for payment, manage purchasing of bank supplies, file and archive all purchasing records, if those are the things that the manager feels strongly about, I'm going to look for those key items in the resume that I receive. All right. And then if I have enough matches, that means that's possibly a contender, so to say, someone that we want to call in and work with. So that's why you want to keep it as clean, as simple as possible, and just focus on the job and what that employer is looking for. So the easiest way to start right now is, let's start with what not to include on a resume. Okay. Never use long paragraphs. Always use bullets followed by short statements. And I will say, I received 4 resumes already from you guys, so to say, and everybody did exactly that. There were bullet points, short and to the point. In your objective or career summary, do not point to what you would like to gain from the job, but focus on what you can provide an employer. So many times people will say in their career summary or their objective, that's your first tagline on a resume, is that I'd like to have a position where I'm going to start here and then I'm going to wind up being a supervisor in 6 months, or they're always looking for what they want. And basically what you want to do is you want to focus on what you're going to give that employer. That's key. Make your resume about what you've actually accomplished. Don't embellish. I'll share that with you. I remember years ago, somebody worked as a short order cook and they wound up saying they were a chef. Okay. Put down exactly what you did. Right. Never start your phrases under your bullet points with I. right? I did this, I did that. I have to say, I didn't see any of that in the resumes that you sent me, okay? I think all of you did a really good job of using what I'm going to call skill or action verbs, like analyze, created, reduce, right? Never use empty or flowery language, such as exquisite or outstanding or interesting. Each phrase you use should point to a specific skill or accomplishment. All right. Most importantly, no misspellings or grammatical errors, because your resume really serves as a writing sample as well. I think all of you know that. You'll probably laugh when I say this, but you'd be surprised over the years how many people do include personal information. I think all of you know not to. No information about your height, your weight, your birth date, your sex, your religion, your political affiliation. All right. Employers should never make decisions based on those elements. And never list hobbies or interests which do not point to workplace skills or bear any relevance to the job you're applying for. So even though you may be an expert at yoga or Zumba, or you have a terrific collection you're proud of, that clutters your resume. Don't include it. But let me backtrack a moment. If you have, for example, let's say you volunteer at a certain group or a church, and you're applying for a position in accounting as an accounting manager, but you've been the church treasurer for quite some time, or you volunteer at an organization where you've done some work with youth regarding how to do your banking or finance. Those types of volunteer activities, because they tend to have relevance to the job you're applying for, could be included, okay? But again, only if you have the space for them on your resume, because again, building your resume is keeping it compact and keeping it concise. Never include a photograph. I know you'll laugh when I say that, unless you're applying for a modeling or an acting job. And you'd be surprised over the years how many people do put photographs of themselves on their resume. Never do that. All right. And as far as including names of contact information of former supervisors or even your references, don't include those. Let the employer that you're interviewing with ask you for those specifically, all right? So never include references. Most times they'll say references will be requested upon an interview. So keep those, again, keep it uncluttered and out of your resume. All right, so let's talk about tips for building a strong resume. First of all, you need to choose a format. And I will say with the ones that I received, I thought all the formats were excellent. They really were. There are a couple of basic types of resume formats. One is chronological, and that's a resume that lists your work experience from most recent to least recent. This format is best used by people who have a consistent work history and increasing job levels. So you might see that for, I'm going to say 2005 to 2010, somebody was an accounting associate at one company. And then from 2010 to 2015, they were an accounting manager. And then from 2015 to 2020, they're currently maybe a controller or a CFO. You'll see that they're building responsibility forward. Again, that's probably the easiest kind to read, is a chronological, and kind of make it easier for a recruiter to read as well. Some people like to use a functional format for their resume, and that's a resume that highlights skills and abilities as opposed to chronological order of experience. And I will say, if you've had some major breaks of employment over the years, you might want to consider a chronological one, because then what you're going to do is you're going to take your professional work history and you're going to list everything that you've accomplished, and then underneath list the employers you work for. All right. But again, most employers do look at chronological ones. I think that seems to be the resume of choice, so to say, but you have to be comfortable with the resume. So use what works best for you and for your work history as well. Very important when you're writing your resume that you choose a basic font. I know we all like to, kind of jazz up our resumes and make them pop, so to say, but you're better off a basic, clean format. I know and it's okay if you want to take the employer or the job you had and put that in bold. For the most part, keep everything very simplistic. It's important. Easier for the hiring managers to read. And today, with all the different applicant management systems, easier for those systems to pick up the information. Some systems actually, recruiters have to scan the resumes. Some of them you'll actually upload. I know ADP has a phenomenal hiring portal a lot of companies are now using, and where you actually do an application and then download your resume. So you want it to be, because they're reading it on we worked with that format at the last employer I worked for. You want again, to be easy to be read and nothing missed. So keep your font clean and simple always, right? So let's start from the beginning, so to say. And I think everybody knows you include all your contact information so that an employer can get in touch with you. Your full name, your street address, your city, your state, your zip code. Include if you have a home phone number, which I don't think too many of us do anymore, but if you do, include that. And a cell phone number or cell phone numbers, but of course, most importantly, your email address. All right. Add a profile or objective. That's the second thing that we're going to work on. You'll need to tailor the objective to match the job you are applying for. And I think we all know that because that's going to change. You know, I always tell people that their resume is a living and breathing document, and it's going to change based on the jobs that you are applying for. It's never going to stay the same. It can't be stagnant. It's got to always be moving. So, and I noticed on some of the ones that people sent me, they actually do have an objective. I know today, in today's job market, a lot of employers feel that an objective is not necessary and it just takes up space, but it sort of focuses on exactly what you want. I had received a resume from someone a while ago that they were applying for a position as a warehouse associate, and they actually said in their objective, I'm looking for a position as a warehouse associate at Garden State Distribution Services, okay? But totally your choice, totally a personal view on your part, whether you want to include it or not. But if you do, be precise and list exactly what you want in that objective. The next is the career summary, and I think that's very important. And again, I'm going to go back to the resumes that all of you sent me. All of you did, whether you use a career summary or whatever terminology you like, but include that. That's basically designed to give a brief overview of who you are and what you do. Very important. Try to use keywords in your career summary that were found in the job description of the position you read. This will increase your chances of resume matching the position. Does everybody understand what I'm saying with that? So in that summary, try to find words that are in the job description that you read and include those. Right. Let me just give you an example. I'm going to go back to the person who applied for the warehouse associate. This person actually put down in their career summary, I have 4 years of safe and successful experience as a warehouse associate, solid math, reading, and writing skills, excellent attendance record while working all shifts, excellent hand-eye and coordination, manual dexterity, and stamina, able to lift 50 pounds, and recently worked at heights of 40 feet. Basically, this is what this person did, but it also was a very close in similarity to the job description of the position that was trying to be filled. So again, remember, you're going to change that to go with the position that you're looking to do. Any questions at all about that? And like I said, for the most part, of all the resumes I reviewed so far, all of you really hit upon that and did an excellent job of that as well. So now we're going to...
Wait, I'm sorry, Gail. There's a question from Natigna. She's asking, you know, in the part where you say to put your contact information.
Right.
She has a Hotmail email account.
Okay.
And she's heard from people for years that, I mean, she's used the Hotmail email for years, but was told that, you know, to update it to a Gmail account because Hotmail is so outdated. Right. So she would like to know, you know, is that true? Is that still accurate?
I have to tell you, I've heard that as well, but I don't know, most recently, Natina, have you sent any resumes out and any response back?
Not recently, but like I connected with a college professor recently and she told me that because I want to get into digital marketing, and I think what she said kind of made sense because she said if you have a Gmail, maybe they'll think that you know like Google AdWords and things, which I am learning, but no one could tell like from a Hotmail. It's just I've had that email for years, like I've used it for so many things, so I guess I wasn't sure if it was worth it to create a Gmail account.
Because what you're saying is a lot of people are able to reach you. They know you and they know you.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and it's on a lot of like job sites too. Like prior to this year when I applied for a job, if my info is on a website, like let's just say PVH for all their companies, it has my Hotmail email in it. So I'm kind of like iffy on changing it now to Gmail.
I can understand your concern. Like I said, I have heard that the other is starting to become obsolete, but what for now, I would say hold on to it and let's see what happens. If you're not getting responses back, then you might want to consider changing it.
Okay.
Okay. I understand your concern and I agree with that. But again, I think you're probably looking at some point to become a little bit more current, and Gmail's probably a better way to go.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions at all? All right. So we've talked about
Wait, I have one, Gail.
Sure.
You mentioned for when you're writing your resume to put your contact information.
Mm-hmm.
I also heard, so I want to make sure, I want to know if this is accurate or not, that you don't have to write your whole home address anymore.
It's funny. I've noticed that. I did notice that on all the resumes that I received. I will say that in my environment, it doesn't really matter because at some point you're going to give them your full address anyhow. So, and I'm going to go back to like the new systems that are out there. You're going to file an application, give them their address, give them your address, and then also on your resume. Again, most times it's an application and a resume in those automated systems that go hand in hand. But I noticed that everybody had their name and then they just had the town they lived in New Jersey. I guess for the most part, I've always told people, you want to make sure employers can get in touch with you. And I know today it's either by cell phone or by email, but you want to make sure they can. And I will tell you, for all the years I've been at working, for people that have applied and maybe we didn't hire, they've always gotten a letter back from me. So I've always wanted, whether it's an email address or a personal address, to make sure I can get back to the candidate. Okay. All right. I know some people are uncomfortable putting a full address. Again, personal choice, but at some point you are going to disclose your full address to an employer. So that's up to you guys. Okay. Whatever you're most comfortable with. All right. Good. So now let's work on what I'm going to call your professional experience. And you can call this, and you actually should, like I'm talking, make sure that that's in your resume, whether it's personal experience, professional experience, background experience, history, whatever words you're most comfortable with, list it that way, because now as an employer, okay, I want to go to the meat of your resume, and this really is the meat of your resume. All right. I recommend not listing every position you ever worked with or every employer you ever worked for, and really just highlighting maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 tops, but I would basically leave it as 3, because as your employment history grows, you'll find you're going to be lobbing off the ones below. All right. If you feel that you worked for a company 4 years ago and it really is paramount to the job you're trying to get today, then you might want to leave it on there. But again, the object is to make your resume as concise as possible. Truthfully, a resume should only be 1 page. And you can all roll your eyes at me when I say that. It's because it's hard. It's very hard. 2 pages the most. Anything more than 2 pages, recruiters aren't going to read. I'm being very honest with you. It's way too much. All right. So consider listing maybe 2, 3 employers tops. Okay. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to list your position title first. That's how I recommend doing it. And then the name of the company. So were you a customer service representative, a material handler, a cable installer, a controller, or if you actually had a specific title, manager of accounting, supervisor of operations, or even a corporate title like assistant vice president, controller, use that. Very important. Let that be the first thing that they see, because an employer wants to see what were you doing, comma, then list the name of the company you worked for. All right. So for example, you might have customer service representative, ABC Bank, Hackensack, New Jersey. And you need to make sure you have the town and the state that the company you work for is located, because they will do reference and background checks. As you know, most employers actually, I'm going to use the term, farm that out. They actually hire outside people to do those background checks for them. A material handler, that was your title. You worked for Central Logistics Incorporated in Rochester, New York. So my recommendation is to use your position title or your corporate title, the company you work for, and the town and the state that they were in. Okay. And now you're going to list what you did for the employer. This is the hard part. All right. As I've said before, you're going to begin each sentence with a bullet point and an action verb. And I have a little bit of a group of verbs I'm going to share with all of you later if you would like to take them down. As we all know, we don't want to start a bullet point with the terminology responsible for. Very easy, right? But in a few minutes, I'm going to contradict myself, but I'll tell you why, right? You don't want to say, I'm going to go back to this one job description for an accounts payable. You don't want to say something like responsible for managing the accounts payable, responsible for reviewing for accuracy, responsible for processing invoices. What you want to do is you want to jump right in and start with what I'm going to call an action verb. All right, and I think for the most part, many of you did that. I've noticed that on the resumes that you sent me. All right, then you're going to add just a little bit more detail. So if you were going to say, okay, I'm going to say it, I'm sorry, maintain, generated, and balanced departmental records. Okay, manage purchasing of all bank supplies. Maintain current listings. See, hear what I'm saying? Filed and archived all purchasing records. All right, worked with facilities manager. It's all in past tense, as you can hear me say, but that's the best way to start any one of your bullet points with an adverb, okay, or a verb in past tense, all right? Then briefly describe what you achieved. So when you're thinking of doing this, all right, and you're actually building your resume, what you want to do is you want to sit back and say, all right, what is the easiest way to identify a result is to ask yourself these questions. What was the reason for performing the task? Why did I perform the task? What would have happened if the task had not been performed? And in some cases, you might be able to even describe a numerical impact on dollars or improving performance by a specific percentage. I will share with all of you, one thing that employers love is when you can show them that what you've done had an impact on the company you work for in terms of numbers. All right, so let me give you an example of what I mean. Say, for example, you worked in a customer service center, and you might want to say, install new phone system that enabled us to answer 40% more calls, all right? An employer would be extremely impressed by that. They love numbers. They want to see that, right? Numbers describe credibility. Numbers stand out to recruiters. Numbers have a high impact, all right? They always do. And dollar sign stands out as well. So as you're putting your resume together and you're putting your bullet points together, and not everything you do will have a numbers impact, but if in that listing of jobs that you did for that employer, if you can show some type of numerical impact, I promise you your resume will stand out, all right? So if you can say you were able to reduce errors by 10%, or you increased sales by $10,000 one quarter, whatever it might be, that is big. So as you're doing this, and again, not everybody had positions, I know that, you know, I'm going to say if you're a biologist or you work in a, again, going back to the warehouse person, maybe they were able to reduce any type of injuries or issues that had in the warehouse by a certain percentage. But numbers really matter when you build your resume. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay. Hard kind of, you have to kind of think about that. All right. So here, let me give you a couple of examples and maybe that might help. So let's say you were a customer service representative and basically you said on your resume, answered customer phone calls. Nothing wrong with that. That's exactly what you did. But what if you changed it and you said, answered an average of 25 customer calls per day, answered questions, resolved problems, and recommended additional products or services that the customer might find useful, increase customer satisfaction and loyalty. That would pop. And as a recruiter, I'd be very impressed by that. I would. Or here's another example. If you're an accounting supervisor, let's say, and basically your resume states processed invoices. That's exactly what you did. Well, what if you said in your resume, processed over 30 invoices per day, quickly and accurately, reducing average billing to payment cycle from 6 weeks to 3 weeks. Right? Makes a big difference, doesn't it? So that's what I mean when I say to people, if you can add a numeric value to what you did. Not in all cases, but I would certainly try to sit back and see if you could. It really helps your resume to stand out. Again, it's not important or necessary to fill a page. All right, you're just going to highlight the key elements of your job. Again, I'm sitting here with a job description and it's 3 pages long, right? We're not going to put that in your resume, that's for sure. What you're going to list is what you feel were your most important responsibilities and accomplishments. And again, the ones that a prospective employer would be impressed by. All right. Now, let's just talk a little bit about some action verbs. I will tell you, I actually did this a few weeks ago in preparation for today. You can actually, when you go to resume writing and resume building, you can actually Google action verbs that you could use on your resume. I don't know if you knew that or not. But let me just share something with you, and this is where I'm going to contradict myself. Earlier, I said to all of you not to use the terminology responsible for, right? I said, don't say responsible for managing, responsible for this, responsible for that. But when you're starting to write your resume, it would make it a lot easier if you did do that and then drop off the word responsible. So what if you said you were responsible for directing the activity of other subordinates? Drop off the word responsible for and just work directed other subordinates or directed subordinates and getting the work done. What if you said responsible for installing cable or whatever it might be? Drop off the words responsible for and just say installed cable, yada, yada, all right? So I'm recommending you use that just as you build your resume, and then lob off those two words responsible for, and then just go with that action verb. That helps tremendously. It really does. So I know people who are just starting to build resumes, it seems to be a really strong way to work. A little while ago, I think you heard me say I worked for an employer who recently, the company I worked for was taken over by another financial institution. And I worked with a lot of associates to help them get their resumes up to date. And we also brought in Lee Heck Harrison. I don't know if you've ever heard of them before. And they did resume building, and they also did interviewing skills for our associates. And I was listening to their presentation, and that's exactly what they said to everybody, just what I'm saying to you now. Start off with responsible for, and then finish the sentence, and then drop the words. And then you've got your bullet points right there at your hands, okay? And just to give you some ideas, sometimes, yes.
Oh, sorry. Natigna had a question on the bullet points, just because you were talking about bullet points. She wants to know how many bullet points should we have per job? If we have a short temporary job, I know that that description will be shorter. And do we only include jobs in the last 5 years unless it's relevant to the job you're applying for now?
Well, I would say in your bullet points, and again, like I said to you, I have a job description here that's 3 pages long of accounts payable. That person did everything on that job description, but we want to only focus on what the prospective employer is looking for, okay? So I would say only key items. I would say if you could think about maybe 4 or 5 of the most important responsibilities you had for the company you work for, those are the ones you're going to list, number one. And again, I also agree that if you've had, for the last 5 years positions, list those, okay? I know this is, you want to be able to show an employer that you had a nice track record. They're really only looking for what you've done recently and if it's going to match what they're looking for now, all right? So I know we have this tendency to include everything. No, like I said, I recommend 2 jobs at the most, maybe 3, really. Okay, the only way I'm going to change that idea is if there is something in a job that you might have done a little while ago, but things change every day. Things change so rapidly that you feel might count towards getting that job, then include it. If not, again, short and sweet. All right, but 4 or 5 bullet points is plenty. It really is. Okay. Now, if you had one job for a number of years and you had quite a bit of responsibility, and I will say, I have resumes here of people who worked for one company for a number of years. And of course, in the beginning, the responsibilities were not as great as maybe they are now. Only focus on what you were doing most recently. Okay. Does that answer your question, Natigna? Okay. All right. Good.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Okay, so let me just throw some words out at you, because I will tell you, I've also seen where people who've coached others in terms of resume building, sometimes just giving them words, sometimes you just don't know the right words to use. And like I said, I found it amusing that you can actually go to a resume site and you can actually see all these key words available to you, like directed, furnished, consulted, developed, guided, built, installed, addressed, created, communicated, answered, presented. These are all strong words for resume building. Coordinated, approved, controlled, all right? Facilitated, helped, guided, assisted. But again, don't be afraid to go back to what I said earlier and just start off with responsible for and then lob off those 2 words and use those as your adverbs. All right, it works. It really does. Again, going back to the person I referred to earlier that was looking for a position as a warehouse associate, they have on here, they loaded and unloaded delivery trucks, utilized packaged materials, ensured material was positioned correctly, assisted in weekly and monthly inventories, maximized safety, used handheld scanners, performed operator maintenance. Again, all adverbs, okay? All right, any questions on that at all? All right, so now let's just recap a minute. You've got your personal information, you have your objective, you've got your summary, and then you've got your professional experience, right? So really what's left right now is your education, right? So what do we include in an educational section? In the education section of your resume, list the schools you attended, the degrees you attained if you have a degree, and only use your GPA if you are a recent student or a recent graduate, okay? Employers really don't worry about your GPA. I want you to know that. We just want to know that you went to school, all right? And if you're going to school, please list that as well, all right? If you're not a college graduate and you haven't gone on to secondary education, then just list the high school that you attended. That's all you need to do, all right? If you're attending college now, list the school you're attending and what your degree will be in, if you should know that, all right? That's what we're looking for. A lot of times employers, you know, if you haven't gotten a degree yet, at least they know you're working towards it, and that weights very heavily. It does, okay? And I see you're asking about the skills section, Natigna. We'll talk about that too in a minute, all right? Under your educational section, if you have earned any special awards or honors, include that in there as well. I know the company I worked for, I'm sure many of you have heard this, we had an employee of the month every month. And that person was nominated based on their performance, either with a customer or a fellow associate. And they got a really nice award and a certificate. Something like that speaks volumes to employers because, and it's also a talking point during an interview. When you're called in for an interview, they might ask, so what did you receive Employee of the Month for? All right. Professional development courses and certifications should also be included in the education section of your resume. And I know many of you in the fields you may be in are required to continue getting professional, I'm going to say certifications. In human resources, we have what's called SHRM, and we are required, and we have a SHRM designation based on how our level of human resources, and we're required to recertify and get credits every year. So if you have any special type of development courses or certifications, they should be included as well, provided again that they are applicable to the position that you're applying for. Okay, that's really what's important. In banking, I can give you an example. We have what's called the Center for Financial Training, and many of men and women who work in banking today, that's a tri-state, New York, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut, New Jersey, many associates attend those programs and have certifications. So that means they just have a little bit more education in the field that they're in. Weights very heavily to an employer, it does, all right? Any other questions about that? So again, in your education part, your high school, your college, your degree, your high school, okay? Any type of special awards that you might have won, and then your professional development courses and certifications. Now, also in this part, and it's totally a personal choice, if you have space on your resume and you want to include some volunteer activities, okay, you can do so. However, I'm going to recommend that those volunteer activities should correlate to the kind of work you're looking to do, right? So we don't want to put down that you're a Sunday school teacher or that you were a Girl Scout. What you want to do is include something. Remember what I said a little while ago is if you were looking for, say, an accounting or finance position and you volunteer at an organization where you're their treasurer, or if you volunteer and speak about financial programs to high school youth or whatever, that would weight a lot, right? But if not, any type of volunteer activity that doesn't really have anything to do with the work you're looking to do, I would not include. You're just taking up resume space, all right? questions at all, you'll always have an opportunity during an interview, because a lot of good interviewers are going to say, so tell me a little bit about your life and your personal life. You'll have an opportunity to talk about those things then. There'll be good talking points then, not in a resume.
I have a quick question about the volunteering. So in my case, I plan on helping Dress for Success with like social media and stuff. I don't know when, but like I plan on volunteering in that way.
Mhm.
But I'm also going to be seeking full-time employment as a digital marketer, and that would be my only real relevant experience. I don't necessarily, I mean, they know that it's a nonprofit, but I don't think they necessarily need to know that it's an unpaid thing. I just don't know. I just don't know if I should put it at like the top of my resume, since it is going to be most recent and relevant, or like have a separate volunteering section with it.
I would definitely list it because it is relevant to the kind of work you're looking to do, but I wouldn't put it at the top of your resume. Okay. I wouldn't. I would basically put it, again, some people have education and then all that. And then some people have, I'm going to say volunteer. You can set it up any way that you're most comfortable with. But basically, if under education, you have high school, college, and then you have professional development courses, you could also include volunteer activities as well. All right. And again, I would definitely include it. I would not put it on the top. That's all.
Okay, so not under professional experience, have a separate volunteering one.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay. Right. Again, you have to be comfortable with your resume. Okay. This is you that you're representing to the employer. Okay. But again, don't go overboard on volunteer activities, only if it's really relevant to the position you're seeking. Okay. All right. So there's your resume. Okay. Not hard. It really isn't. Just have to have some time to review it and think about what's most important. So how do you avoid mistakes, right? First thing you're going to do is you're going to read and reread and reread your resume before you even submit it for a position. Consider reading your resume, believe it or not, from the bottom up, okay? And read it out loud. Ever do anything like that when you want to proofread something, right? Always important to read it out loud. Ask somebody to read it for you. Let them take your resume. Fresh eyes might catch an error or mistake that you didn't see originally, okay? And don't be afraid to utilize online resources. I know you're going to do spell check, right, before you do anything else, but spell check can sometimes confuse words as well, right? One and one, there and there. There is an app called Grammarly, Grammarly. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it. It's an exceptional app, and it does a great job of catching spelling and grammar errors. All right. So if you have an opportunity to get that app and send your resume through it, it's a really good way of catching those type of errors. And it may not like the way something's presented. You know, sometimes we read something and read something over and we don't catch it. But you want to make sure your resume is as perfect as it can be. Okay. Any questions at all about that? All right. And then I just want to follow, kind of close today's session with cover letters, because I know you're going to want to write a cover letter. All right. The cover letter you write is going to allow you to introduce yourself and tell a brief story to persuade an employer how well your skills, abilities, and attributes match the organization's needs. Okay. If you are pursuing a specific job or position, customize the cover letter for that position and the employer. So if you went on to LinkedIn and you saw a position and you're including a cover letter with your resume, you're going to gear that cover letter to the company. If you're pursuing employment with a particular business and organization, but you don't have a position in mind, and you're just sending your resume out, customize the cover letter for that employer only. Now, I know there's two schools of thought, and I don't know how everybody feels about this. I've never been a believer in sending out unsolicited resumes, right? How many times have you heard people say, I sent my resume to 25 employers and nobody called me back, right? Right. I don't happen to really agree that that's a good way to look for a job, because really all you're doing is wasting your resumes. It's more important that you send a resume that's targeting a specific position. Now, I'm not going to tell you that through the years, and I've read and been involved in a lot of recruiting and read a lot of resumes in my career, that there hasn't been a resume that I thought, wow, this looks kind of good, but I don't have a position right now, and I'll put it aside, right? I'm not going to tell you that does not happen. But again, I'm personally not a believer in just sending out resumes unless I'm applying for a specific job. All right, again, totally your choice. But if you're sending your resume and it's not for a specific job, then in your cover letter, okay, you want to customize it to that employer. All right. Your first paragraph is going to say why you are writing. So why are you writing to us? You're going to identify the position you're applying for, and the position that you're targeting. Mention how you heard about the organization or the job opening. You might say in your cover letter, I saw it on LinkedIn. I read an ad. Sometimes you might have even been referred to the position by somebody you know, to a mutual acquaintance. If that's so, and you have their permission, you can mention that person as well, right? And in this first paragraph, you want to demonstrate to your employer that you have researched the company by mentioning either a new project the company has taken on, the organizational mission. You know, most organizations have mission statements, or a management philosophy, or even a news item that you've read. I most recently have moved to Ocean County. I live in Ocean County now. And I've noticed in a lot of the news feeds that I read that Ocean First, which is a very big bank in Ocean County, has an actual foundation, and they have been donating quite a bit of money to COVID relief, to food banks and different organizations to help over the past couple months. So I might make mention of that in my cover letter if I was applying for a position at Ocean First. So you want to do your homework, because even before you go in for an interview, you're going to want to make sure you're prepared and know about the company that you're going to interview with. Your second paragraph, I call connecting the dots. If you're applying for a specific position, consider listing the key requirements of the job that you saw listed in the ad or on the, let's say, LinkedIn page, and then next to the key requirements, put your experience. So you might actually want to put key requirements on one part, and then on the other side, my experience. So let's say, for example, key requirement, going back to that warehouse job, follow safety and standard operation procedures. And then under my experience, put, I have 3 years of successful and accident and injury-free performance in a hazardous workplace. And then just keep building it that way. Good way to let an employer know that what you're looking for, I think I have the skills and qualifications for, all right? Or if you're targeting an employer or occupation, but using a more generic cover letter, just summarize your most important skills and accomplishments in maybe a couple of sentences. That's all you do. And then at the end of your cover letter, what you're going to do is you're just going to wrap it up. That's what I call it. Express confidence that your experience and your capabilities will enable you to contribute to the employer's success. State that you look forward to discussing the contributions you can offer in an interview. So I have a couple of examples that I'll share with you, and you can use whatever you're most comfortable with. Some people very simply just say, I look forward to meeting with you to learn more about the position and to discuss how my experience can contribute to the success of expedited distribution services, right? And that's fine. Or, and some people are a little bit more forceful, so it's whatever you're most comfortable with. I've seen a lot of cover letters that say, I'm available to meet with you and other members of the leadership team to explore ways that I might be able to contribute to Expedited's quest to become the nation's leading logistics firm. So basically, they must have picked that up off their website. I will follow up with a phone call next week to see if we can arrange to meet in the near future. Right? It is a little bit more forceful language. If you're comfortable with it, you can do it. I think most people, after they send a resume targeting a certain position, may wind up doing that. All right, totally up to you, whatever you are most comfortable with. Okay, so questions at all? I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. I hope some of what I've shared with you today has been helpful to you. Hopefully it has. Again, I'm going to tell all of you that I will review all the resumes that you sent me, and I'll make some notes in the margins for you, and then I'll scan them back to you. And please feel free to contact me over the next week or two. I'm here. I'd be more than glad to help you. Okay? Everybody good? Okay, questions at all, Nikita? Oh, how soon after an interview should you send a thank you email? I would say a day or two later. Okay. It's funny. Years ago, I never really believed in them. And now I am a very big believer in thank you emails. I think it's important. So probably right after the interview, take the interview, and then maybe a day or so later, no later than that though, send a thank you note to the recruiter. A thank you email is fine. It really is. All right. And then again, you can express that you're interested in the position and hope that you might be under consideration for the position. Right. Truthfully, once you have that interview, you want to sort of stay in the face of that recruiter important. And it said, should you have a separate section for computer skills and another for soft skills? I would say no to that. I really would. What are you trying, let me just ask the question, what do you mean by that when you say that? In other words, do you want a separate section that just highlights your computer skills? I don't think she hears me. Amy.
I can write it to her.
Yeah, I did. I meant one for like Microsoft, like social media, things like that, and another saying like, I don't know, this is like a bad choice of words, but like go-getter or like organized, like those types of skills.
Right. No, you know what? I wouldn't make that separate, okay? I would include that information in the context of your work experience.
Okay. So no separate section for skills, but include those words in your descriptions.
Exactly. All right. And again, go back to whatever the ad or the LinkedIn position, wherever you found this opportunity for employment, and see what they're looking for. Okay. Don't fill space with words. Fill space with what you think they want to see and hear. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Any other questions at all?
Kiva wrote a question there. She said, are information interviews outdated?
And can I ask what you mean by information interviews? In other words, just meeting to, and not necessarily a targeted interview?
Correct.
I'm sorry, I've not heard that before.
I'm dating myself. They used to be very popular.
Okay. So, and it was just meeting to get information about you?
About the company, possible positions, just to explore working for the company.
I see. No, all right. So in other words, you're just making an appointment to meet with someone and try to find out information about the company if there's any opportunities there.
Exactly. Yes.
I don't think right now in this day and age, people are doing that too much. Okay. I think the role of a recruiter for any company right now is to fill the positions with qualified people, and they're moving along as quickly as possible. You know, I have to tell you that during my career in human resources, if somebody called me and asked me if they could meet with me and I had the time, I would not say no to somebody. I wouldn't. I would probably make the time to meet with them. So it's not a bad idea, but I don't know how well in today's environment, how receptive they would be to that. Okay, good question now. Very good question. If I was still recruiting for the bank I worked for, I'd have you come meet with me in a heartbeat, okay?
And then you have one there from Taisha. Should you upload your resume as a PDF versus a Word doc?
I think most systems today, I think a Word doc probably, no, I would say that's a good question. It depends upon the system. I've had people do it both ways, all right, just to make sure. But I think most tracking systems today, applicant tracking systems that they have out there, are able to handle either one. Okay, because some of you sent, I've had resumes that came to me as a PDF, I had some as Word, and it was fine. Okay, so if you have a Word doc and it's easy for you to work with, do it that way. All right, and remember what I said, your resume will always be a living, breathing document. All right, for every position you applied for, you're going to gear that resume, okay, to that position. So don't just sit back on your laurels. You know what they always say about looking for a job, right? It is a job, right? Looking for a job is a job. So you want to keep your resume as current and clean and crisp as possible, okay? If you see something on there that all of a sudden you think, oof, that doesn't look good, take it off, all right? Add something else. All right, good. I hope I've been somewhat helpful to all of you. I've enjoyed this tremendously. And again, I'd like to be a resource for any of you, so don't hesitate to reach out to me, as long as Lorraine's okay with it. All right.
They're asking for your LinkedIn if you have one.
What is my LinkedIn? I guess you can just go under Gail Tilstra and find me there. Okay. I finally, I've always been had LinkedIn, but now I set up a separate account. Or I think all of you have my email address, gtilstra@optonline.net. You can reach me there as well. All right, but again, more than glad to help you.
This was great. Thank you so much, Gail. It was really good. Anyone has any questions? Any more questions?
And if you don't forget later, then email me, okay?
I was going to say that.
All right.
Thank
Good,
you
good.
so much. This was wonderful. Thank you for all your preparation and your follow-up feedback about our resumes.
They were, I will tell you, they were all good. I see a few little things we can get them a little more crisper. Okay. Absolutely. All right. But thank you. It's been my pleasure to do this for all of you. Okay.
Thank you so much, Gail.
Welcome. Be good. Be well. Be safe. You hear?
Thank you. Yes.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.